Do you truly understand the real, far-reaching impact of wet feed on your cattle? For livestock farmers, feed management is the cornerstone of successful cattle raising, yet many still underestimate the essential role that wet feed plays in maintaining optimal cattle health and maximizing production potential. When cattle are fed wet feed every day, the effect goes far beyond what you see in the trough or on the surface of their bodies. The real, transformative changes happen deep internally, in the rumen, throughout the entire digestive tract, in vital organ function, and eventually in their body condition, coat shine, feed intake stability, and even the steady, relaxed way they ruminate in front of you. These internal shifts are the foundation of all visible improvements, yet they remain hidden to those who only judge feed effectiveness by short-term weight gain or surface appearance. Many farmers still treat wet feed as just a temporary supplement or a last-minute fix, rather than a core component of a balanced daily ration. It's something they add haphazardly when cattle lose appetite, become picky eaters, show signs of lethargy, or need a short-term boost in weight gain before market. In most cases, it's seen as a special treat, a quick pick-me-up, or a supplementary feed for sick or weak animals, rather than a foundational, non-negotiable part of the daily diet. But this common, short-sighted mindset may be quietly costing farmers far more than expected, in reduced feed conversion efficiency, higher rates of subclinical diseases, lower daily weight gains, compromised reproductive performance, and long-term damage to the overall health of the herd. What many perceive as a minor oversight in feeding management is actually a critical gap that limits the full genetic potential of every animal on the farm. Because once wet feed becomes a consistent, intentional part of the cattle's daily diet, something profound begins to shift within their bodies, and it happens faster than most people realize. Within just a few days of consistent wet feeding, subtle but powerful internal changes start taking place in the rumen environment and digestive function. Within a few weeks, those internal changes become visible in ways that are hard to ignore: steadier appetite, calmer behavior, more regular rumination, and a gradual improvement in coat luster. These early signs are not just cosmetic. They are clear indicators that the animal's body is returning to a state of natural balance, free from the chronic stress caused by imbalanced, overly dry feeding regimens. To truly understand why wet feed has such a transformative effect, we have to go back to the biological origins and evolutionary history of cattle. Their wild ancestors grazed freely across vast pastures, feeding on fresh grasses, tender young plants, moisture-rich legumes, and succulent vegetation year-round. These natural forages contained as much as 70% to 80% water, perfectly aligned with the digestive system that cattle evolved over millennia. Every bite delivered both essential nutrients and natural hydration simultaneously, forming the biological blueprint that their complex digestive systems, especially the rumen, are designed to process. This natural synergy of nutrition and moisture is not a luxury for cattle. It is a biological necessity encoded in their DNA. Modern intensive feeding systems, however, have strayed far from this natural model, relying heavily on dry feed, harvested hay, straw, grain concentrates, and processed feed pellets with only 10% to 12% moisture content. This creates a significant, often unrecognized gap between what cattle are biologically adapted to consume and what they actually receive in commercial farming operations. The rumen, the cattle's most vital digestive organ, does not simply adapt to this dry diet without consequence. It works harder every single day to compensate for the lack of natural moisture, straining microbial communities and slowing critical digestive processes. This constant overwork weakens the rumen's function over time, setting the stage for a cascade of digestive and metabolic issues. Rumen microbes, the trillions of beneficial bacteria, fungi, and protozoa that break down fiber and convert feed into energy, depend entirely on a stable, moist environment to thrive and function efficiently. When moisture is lacking in the feed, the rumen environment becomes dry and imbalanced. Fermentation slows dramatically, fiber digestion becomes less effective, nutrient absorption is compromised, and overall feed conversion efficiency declines sharply. At the same time, metabolic waste products become more concentrated in the body, placing additional strain on the kidneys, urinary tract, and excretory system. This chronic stress on internal organs is invisible to the naked eye but gradually erodes the animal's health and resilience. Even when cattle have unlimited access to clean drinking water and drink regularly, this separate water intake does not fully replace the natural, continuous hydration obtained through moisture-rich feed. Drinking water passes through the digestive system differently, failing to maintain the consistent moist environment that rumen microbes require for optimal function. As a result, the vast majority of cattle raised on dry feed systems exist in a state of mild, chronic dehydration, a subclinical condition that rarely shows obvious symptoms but quietly undermines every aspect of health and performance. Over time, this persistent state of insufficient hydration can contribute to a host of chronic issues: urinary stones, internal inflammation, reduced immune function, poor reproductive performance, and significantly reduced overall growth and production efficiency. When high moisture feed like quality silage, fresh grain fodder, or properly prepared wet mixed feed is introduced consistently into the diet, this long-standing internal imbalance begins to correct itself rapidly. The rumen environment regains its ideal moisture level, beneficial microbial activity flourishes, and digestion returns to its natural, efficient rhythm. Urine output increases, becomes clearer and less concentrated, and the risk of mineral buildup and crystal formation in the urinary tract is significantly reduced. The animal's entire system starts functioning in harmony with its natural design, rather than struggling against the constraints of an unnatural, overly dry diet. One of the earliest and most reliable visible signs of this digestive improvement appears somewhere many farmers overlook or dismiss: the manure. Manure reveals everything about a cattle's internal health, digestive efficiency, and feed utilization. Experienced farmers know that manure is a direct window into the rumen, an unfiltered, honest report card of how well the animal's digestive system is functioning. Cattle fed primarily on dry, low-moisture diets often produce droppings that fall into two problematic extremes: either too hard, dry, and pellet-like, indicating slow, stagnant digestion and insufficient moisture, or too loose, watery, and unformed, signaling poor nutrient absorption, rumen upset, or digestive imbalance. Both extremes are clear red flags of inefficiency. Either feed is moving too slowly through the gut or nutrients are passing through unabsorbed. Undigested grains, coarse fiber particles, and uneven texture are also commonly visible in the manure of cattle on dry diets, proof that feed is not being fully broken down and utilized. With consistent, high-quality wet feeding, the manure changes noticeably and rapidly. It becomes soft, moist, well-formed, and uniform in texture, with a smooth consistency that reflects perfectly balanced digestion and optimal rumen function. There are no undigested grains, no excessive coarse fiber, no dry hardness or unnatural looseness. This ideal manure is not just a sign of comfort for the animal. It is concrete evidence that the rumen is working efficiently, nutrients are being fully absorbed, and the body is properly hydrated. Every pound of feed is now being converted into growth, energy, and health, rather than passing through the body unused. And this transformative improvement in digestion is only the beginning of the benefits of consistent wet feeding. Over time, farmers who adopt structured wet feeding programs observe a cascade of positive changes across the entire herd. Coat quality improves dramatically. Coats become smoother, glossier, and more vibrant, as proper hydration and nutrient absorption support healthy skin and hair follicles. Feeding behavior stabilizes. Cattle become less picky, more eager to eat, and maintain consistent daily intake without the fluctuations common in dry feed herds. Rumination patterns become more regular and relaxed, a sign that the animals are free from digestive discomfort and chronic internal stress. Energy levels rise, and physical condition improves steadily. Young cattle grow faster and more evenly, while dairy cows maintain more consistent milk production with fewer fluctuations. The immune system functions better, making the herd more resistant to common infections and environmental stresses. Reproductive health also benefits, as balanced nutrition and hydration support hormonal stability and optimal reproductive function. However, balance and quality remain essential to reap these benefits. Poor quality wet feed, improperly fermented silage, feed that has spoiled or become moldy, or inconsistent wet feeding management can introduce new risks, including digestive upsets, toxin exposure, rumen acidosis, or instability in the microbial community. Wet feed must be fresh, properly prepared, stored correctly, and integrated into a balanced ration that matches the animal's age, weight, and production stage. Like any feeding practice, consistency and quality are key to avoiding problems and maximizing benefits. In the end, wet feed is not just an optional supplement or a temporary fix for poor appetite. It is a fundamental return to a more natural, biologically appropriate feeding model that aligns with how cattle have evolved to eat and thrive. It bridges the critical gap between modern dry feed systems and the natural grazing diet that their bodies are designed for, supporting every aspect of health, digestion, and performance. By making wet feed a consistent, intentional part of your daily ration, you're not just feeding your cattle, you are nurturing their biological balance, unlocking their genetic potential, and building a healthier, more productive, and more resilient herd. And your cattle will always show you the difference clearly, if you know where to look, in their steady appetite, calm rumination, glossy coats, ideal manure, consistent growth, and vibrant overall health. These are the silent, powerful signs that you have returned your cattle to the natural feeding rhythm they were born to thrive on. Thank you for reading. Follow us for more practical tips on scientific cattle raising, efficient feeding, and gut health. Make farming easier and profits more stable.